The clock chimed 12. Darkness cloaked the mansion. Silence, heavy and absolute, hung in the air. A single light flickered, a lonely beacon in the sprawling house. Inside, a man lay still, very still.
His name was Arthur Blackwood, master of the estate. He wouldn't be needing it anymore. Not in this life.
The old grandfather clock ticked on, oblivious to the drama unfolding beneath its polished surface. Midnight had come, and, with it, death. A gasp, a shriek. The maid, young and easily startled, stumbled back from the study door. Her scream ripped through the silence, echoing in the vast emptiness of the house. It was a sound that spoke of terror, a primal fear unleashed. She had discovered the body. Mr. Blackwood slumped over his desk, a single bullet wound marring his temple. His lifeless eyes stared into nothingness, reflecting the cold moonlight streaming through the window. News of the untimely demise of Arthur Blackwood spread through the town like wildfire. The townsfolk, who had always seen Arthur as a pillar of the community, were left in a state of shock and disbelief. His sudden death was not just a loss. It was a mystery that demanded answers. Whispers of foul play, of dark secrets filled every corner. In the dimly lit corners of the local pub, hushed conversations speculated on the possible motives and suspects. Some spoke of old grudges, others of hidden affairs, and a few even hinted at supernatural forces at play. The air was thick with suspicion and fear. The local constabulary, out of their depth, called for help. The small-town police force, unaccustomed to dealing with such a high-profile case, found themselves overwhelmed. They needed expertise beyond their capabilities, someone who could navigate the labyrinth of clues and red herrings that surrounded Arthur's death. They needed someone who could unravel the enigma that was Arthur Blackwood's life and death. The case files were a tangled web of contradictions and dead ends, each piece of evidence raising more questions than answers. It was clear that only a mind as sharp and analytical as a detective's could make sense of it all.
Enter Detective Alistair Finch, a man of few words and even fewer smiles. Known for his meticulous nature and unyielding determination, Finch was a legend in his own right. His presence alone commanded respect and instilled a sense of hope that the truth would soon be uncovered. His reputation preceded him, a solver of puzzles, a reader of minds, a seeker of truth. Finch had an uncanny ability to see what others missed, to connect the dots that seemed unrelated. His mind worked like a finely tuned machine, processing information with incredible speed and accuracy. Finch arrived at the Blackwood Manor, his sharp eyes scanning the scene, his mind already piecing together the fragments of a shattered night. The manor, once a symbol of wealth and power, now stood as a silent witness to the tragedy. Finch's flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating clues that had been overlooked. Every step he took brought him closer to the truth, every observation a piece of the puzzle. The detective knew that the answers lay hidden in the shadows, and he was determined to bring them to light.
Mr. Blackwood was a creature of habit. The cook, Mrs. Odette, a stout woman with flour-dusted hands and a nervous disposition, told Detective Finch. Dinner at 8, a brandy in the study at 10, and then silence.
Her voice trembled as she spoke, her eyes darting nervously around the room.
I heard nothing, sir, nothing at all. It was the maid who found him.
Finch observed her, his gaze unwavering. She was hiding something, he could feel it, but what?
Mr. Blackwood and we didn't always see eye to eye. He threatened to fire me, said I wasn't tending to the roses properly. But I'd never hurt a fly, sir, not really.
The gardener, a wiry man named Silas, stood hunched over, his eyes fixed on the ground. Finch studied the gardener, his sharp eyes missing nothing. Was it guilt he detected or simply fear?
I was out running errands for Mr. Blackwood. He had me fetching books from the city, said it was urgent. I got back just before the police arrived.
James, the driver, a tall, imposing man with a steely gaze, met Finch's gaze head-on. He produced a receipt, the ink still fresh. His alibi checked out, but something about his demeanor felt off. The study was a testament to Blackwood's character. Bookshelves lined the walls, a fire crackled in the hearth, a half-finished game of chess sat on a table by the window, and in the center of it all, the deceased. Finch examined the scene meticulously. The gun, A silver revolver lay near Blackwood's outstretched hand. There were no signs of a struggle, no forced entry, no indication that anything was amiss, except, of course, for the dead man in the room. Section 8. The weight of evidence. The evidence was mounting, each piece pointing towards a grim conclusion that Detective Finch was reluctant to accept. The crime scene was meticulously examined, every photograph scrutinized, every piece of evidence pinned to the board, creating a web of connections that seemed to lead nowhere and everywhere at once. The cook, with his nervous glances and hurried movements, seemed to be hiding something. The way he wiped his hands with the towel almost obsessively hinted at a deeper anxiety. The gardener, always looking over his shoulder, and the driver, constantly checking the rearview mirror. They all had their secrets, their hidden resentments, their own reasons to be wary. Each one of them had a story, a motive, a potential for deceit. But did any of them amount to murder? The knife with bloodstains, the shadowy figure holding a gun, these were not just props in a play, but real elements in a deadly game. Finch paced the study, his mind racing. The gun, the lack of disturbance, the testimonies, each piece of evidence seemed to fit too perfectly, as if orchestrated by an unseen hand. The cluttered desk was a testament to his relentless pursuit of the truth. Papers strewn about, notes scribbled in haste. It all felt too staged. The more he delved into the case, the more it seemed like a carefully constructed illusion designed to mislead and confuse. Was he dealing with a clever cover-up, a mastermind who had thought of every detail, or was there something more to this puzzle? The fingerprints wiped clean, the evidence handled with gloves. It all pointed to a level of sophistication that was unnerving. Or was there something more to this puzzle? Finch couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing a crucial piece, something that would make everything fall into place. The complexity of the case was overwhelming, but he knew that the answer was there, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. Section 9. A glimmer of truth. Finch's eyes fell on a seemingly insignificant detail, a small leather-bound book lying open on the desk, its pages filled with Blackwood's elegant handwriting. It was a diary, and the latest entry sent a chill down Finch's spine. "The darkness closes in," it read. "My own mind has become my prison. I can't go on like this." A suicide note hidden in plain sight.
Section 10. The final deduction. Finch gathered everyone in the grand dining hall. The suspects, the maid, the constables, all eyes were on him, waiting for the verdict. Arthur Blackwood, he announced, his voice echoing in the silent room, took his own life.
Gasps filled the room. The cook crossed herself, the gardener stared at the floor, the driver remained stoic, but a flicker of something crossed his eyes. Finch had seen that look before. Relief. Section 11. The shadows recede. In the cold light of dawn, the Blackwood mansion stood as a silent sentinel, its once menacing facade softened by the gentle hues of the morning sun. The shadows that had seemed so deep and impenetrable during the night now began to recede, revealing the true nature of the mansion. It was as if the building itself was shedding its dark past, allowing the light to cleanse its walls. The truth, as it often did, had cast its own light, illuminating the hidden corners and dispelling the darkness that had clung to the night. The mansion, once a place of fear and mystery, now seemed almost serene in the early morning light. The morning sun, breaking through the fog, brought with it a sense of clarity and understanding. It was a new day, and with it came the promise of new beginnings and the hope of uncovering the truth. As the light filled the rooms of the mansion, the shadows dissipated, taking with them the fears and uncertainties of the night. It was a symbolic cleansing, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always the promise of light. The suicide of Arthur Blackwood remained a tragedy, a poignant reminder of the silent struggles that many face. His death was a cry for help that went unheard, a testament to the pain that can lie hidden beneath the surface. Detective Finch, a man of deep contemplation, understood that sometimes the greatest mysteries were not those that could be solved with evidence and logic, but those that lay within the human heart. He knew that the true challenge was not in finding the answers, but in understanding the questions. As he pored over the case files, he realized that the real mystery was not who had committed the crime, but why. What drove a man to such despair? What silent battles had Arthur Blackwood fought, and why had he felt so alone? In the end, Detective Finch knew that the answers he sought were not in the evidence, but in the silent, invisible struggles of the human heart. It was a reminder that sometimes the most profound truths are those that cannot be seen but only felt, Lee.